Let me introduce the next speaker, the keynote for our AI topic, a gentleman named Alasdair Monk. Again, I've known Alasdair for, I don't know, 20, 25 years. He has more than 20 years experience leading industrial companies, accelerating business revenue, growth of digital transformations from inception to execution. He's an original long-standing member of Microsoft's groundbreaking IoT Industry Leaders Group. I've known him from my time in another world when I was in the mining industry, and he did incredible things with our digital presence there, and he's going to talk about some of that today. I'm very pleased and proud to present Mr. Alasdair Monk.
Let me start with a question. When was the last time a piece of technology truly surprised you? Not because it was faster or smaller, but because it changed the way you think. Good afternoon. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today, not just to talk about AI or the Internet of Things, but to explore something far more profound: connection. Because this story is not really about AI or things or protocols. It's about what happens when intelligence becomes ambient, and when systems begin to anticipate, not just react, and when digital transformation stops being a buzzword and becomes something we actually live. This isn't a story about technology, it's a story about us, about how we lead, how we build, and how we design systems that serve people and not the other way around. A societal pivot deeper and more transformational than any industrial revolution that came before it. Let's rewind. Imagine for a moment you'd been born 200 years ago and were accelerated through time. The change would be incomprehensible. If you step back far enough, you see progress in distinct ways: steam, electricity, mass production, automation, computing. Each wave brought radical change. It shaped industries, workforces, societies, planes, trains, automobiles, computers, industrial manufacturing, cellular phones, devices that connect anytime to anything, to anywhere. Okay, almost anywhere. These are powers that you have at your fingertips that 200 years ago would have made you appear like a god. In the last 10 years alone, we've unlocked more compute power and technological capability than in the previous 200 years combined. That's not throwaway line, it's a signal. We're living in a time when the speed of innovation has been radically compressed. What once took decades now happens in months. Computational power isn't just faster, it's redefining possibility. The convergence of AI, edge computing, IoT, and advanced analytics is forging a new industrial paradigm. As leaders, we can no longer rely on linear thinking. Strategic advantage comes from not just scale or efficiency, but from our ability to anticipate, adapt, and re-architect in real time. 30 years ago, I worked for the world's leading payphone manufacturer. I sat in meetings where leadership scoffed at the introduction of a cellular phone. My 19-year-old son barely knows what a payphone is, as I'm sure many of you don't. I literally listened to the head of strategy say that mobile phones would never take off. The screens are too small, the buttons are too small, the service is too expensive. He sounded an awful lot like Goldilocks. Now consider where we are today. Cell phones are ubiquitous across the world. Artificial intelligence now powers everything from autonomous vehicles to real-time language translation. Voice assistants like Alexa and Siri have become household staples. Answering questions, controlling lights, even helping with shopping lists. Smartphones now rival laptops in power, and 5G networks let us stream, game, and video call in real time. And wearable tech, from smartwatches to fitness rings, tracks our sleep, our heart rate, our stress, and helps millions make healthier choices. Consider this: the Apollo guidance computer that landed humans on the moon had less processing power than a modern digital watch. These aren't just gadgets, they're signals of a deeper shift, one where intelligence is embedded into the fabric of daily life, quietly reshaping how we live, work, and connect. AI and the Internet of Things haven't simply emerged in this wave, they're helping define it. And in the industrial workplace, we've moved from machines that operate independently to systems that collaborate intelligently, from isolated products to ecosystems of insights, decisions, and services, from automation to augmentation. Human plus machine working side by side. But the transformation isn't just technical, it's human, it's philosophical, it's organizational. Because if everything is connected, then real questions are no longer, can it be done? Who does it serve? How is value created and experienced? And what are we building together? Big questions. We now live in an age where the most audacious ideas aren't laughed at, they're funded. Look at what's happening with lunar colonization, private space travel, Mars timelines. What was once sci-fi is now on the Gantt chart, budgeted, staffed, and underway. I certainly never imagined this in my lifetime. 40 years ago, I watched the Star Trek movie, No Way Home. The crew of the Starship Enterprise travels back to 1986 San Francisco. Scotty is stranded on Earth with no communicator and needs to contact the Enterprise. He asks the person assisting him whether he can use their computer. To his amazement, Scotty tries to introduce himself. Hello, computer. Hello, computer. Apologies for the accent, especially if there's any Scots in the audience today. My teenage self laughed, never imagining that we'd be able to talk to computers in my lifetime. It seems ridiculous now, doesn't it? But the scaffolding of that future isn't rockets and suits. It's infrastructure. It's intelligent sensors embedded in everything. Scalable compute power and cloud fabrics that never sleep. AI agents that interpret, learn, and act autonomously. We are building a world where environments respond to us, and not the other way around. Let's bring this down to earth. You wake up, but your home has already been up for hours. It's been listening, learning, adaptive. Smart sensors in your mattress and wearables track your sleep cycles, heart rate, and restlessness. AI has already compared that to your calendar, the weather, even your recent stress levels. So the lights rise gently aligned to your circadian rhythm. The temperature shifts to sharpen your alerts. A curated soundscape, baby soft piano, baby bird song, eases you into the day. You didn't set this, didn't even think about it. Your home simply knew. Even your breakfast reordered itself because your fridge noticed you were running low on protein and your smartwatch flagged the recovery day. And work, your commute reroutes not just around traffic, but around you. Because your system knows today's not the day for highway chaos. You're arriving at the desk. The lighting adjusts the focus. Repetitive tasks are already resolved in decisions. They surface only when they're needed. No sooner, no later. As the day winds down, your home shifts again. It optimizes energy draw, logs your health insights, and nudges you gently towards micro changes that improve your well-being. And that voice in your ear, it's no longer Alexa or Siri, it's your holographic life coach, your joy, like in Blade Runner 2049, the AI companion who knows you better than you know yourself. You didn't program this, you didn't manage it, you simply lived it. Blade Runner isn't science fiction anymore, it's a design brief. That's the promise of hyperconnection. Not convenience for its own sake, but intelligence embedded into life. Let's imagine a typical day in industry in 2030. The shift begins before anyone arrives. AI agents have already optimized safety alerts, machine readiness, and shift priorities. Operators walk into clarity, not chaos. Equipment doesn't want to fail. Predictive maintenance schedules interventions before breakdowns occur. Downtime, it's a design flaw, not a daily reality. Remote sites collaborate in real time. AI orchestrates energy loads, reroutes logistics, adapts prediction schedules on the fly. The system doesn't just respond, it harmonizes. Technicians work alongside intelligent assistants, voice-guided diagnostics, augmented reality overlays. And real-time translation across global teams enables interfaces to become bridges, not barriers. The supply chain behaves like a living system. Inventory adjusts to demand signals. Disruptions are rerouted before they're even felt. And in your world, environmental sensors trigger adaptive ventilation and emissions control. Compliance reporting happens automatically. Governance isn't a blocker, it's ambient. And you as leaders, you don't just see KPIs, you understand causality. AI highlights anomalies, suggests interventions, and learns from outputs. This isn't automation, it's orchestration. And it's not the future, it's already underway. Let's shift from the theoretical to the practical. Take Weir. Some, maybe many of you, will know the name. A multi-billion-dollar global engineering company supplying industrial equipment to the mining and mineral sector. I led the IoT program for several years, and today is seen as a digital leader, an integrated platform monitoring ore quality in real time. Signals that orchestrate decisions from crushers to pumps, motor speeds dynamically adjusted based on market signals, and service schedules also generated from component wear data. It's elegant, sophisticated, seamless. But it wasn't always this way. Rewind just a few years and the story looked very, very different. Numerous false starts, vague program goals, competing stakeholder visions, under-resourced digital teams expected to do everything from building the digital runway to fly the plane, all under the pressure of show you the ROI in 24 months. Sound familiar? Digital was seen as a product refresh, not a reinvention. Tech was the focus and human purpose was blurry. Teams were designing new offerings while still assembling infrastructure. It was like launching aircraft while still building the airport. Even when things worked technically, insight was trapped. Data was displayed but not used. The dashboards looked slick but disconnected from decisions. Information existed but had no clear user. What we had was something you might call insight in splendid isolation. And it's more common than you might think. In 2022, Capgemini found that nearly 90% of companies, OEMs, aim to have intelligent products and services, yet only 7% had achieved scale. Fast forward to 2024, And McKinsey found many companies still struggle to monetize them. So the question isn't, can we build it? It's, can we land it? Can we connect technology with users, with systems, with trust? Let's unpack that. So what changed for Weir? How did we move from prototype paralysis to solution success? I was there at the beginning, helping lay foundation, shape the strategy, navigating early complexity. With the transformation certainly at the end there, Weir evolved, and they did it by embracing three truths. IoT is not the destination, it's the beginning. IoT creates the connection, orchestration creates value. Integration beats innovation. It's not about building standalone brilliance, it's about weaving capabilities into the customer's own reality. The user is everything. Insight has no value if it's not embedded in a decision or experience. So we stopped trying to own every piece. We partnered wise, we embedded intelligence, not just in machines, but in the entire customer journey. Now Weir operates on a true digital thread. Data moves frictionlessly, decisions are localized but informed globally, and humans plus AI create value neither could alone. Let's take one example. The flagship product, Wallman fonts. Sensors flag potential overheating and excessive vibration, amongst other things. But without integration into service workflows or ERP systems, no one responded in time. The problem wasn't the tech, it was the gap between insight and action. So we changed course. First, integrating sensor data with back-end systems, service planning, engineering databases, ERP, no more silos, just one connected reality. Then they built intelligent algorithms, not just flagging anomalies, but recommending fixes, automatically routed to the right teams at the right time. And it didn't stop. Upskilling teams across 60 countries so that transformation wasn't simply a department, it was a culture. And when they needed deeper adaptive intelligence, they acquired Sentient AI, a specialist in dynamic process optimization. Now Weir doesn't just monitor machines, they orchestrate entire flow sheets from real-time ore quality to predictive pump schedule. The result? They move from reactive maintenance to proactive orchestration, from digital experiments to enterprise transformation. Let me be frank. In this new era, integration is no longer optional. It's existential. The question is no longer whether your product can connect to the cloud. It's whether your product can meaningfully participate in an ecosystem of value exchange, of interoperable platforms, of shared data, shared risk, and yes, shared responsibility. This requires a mindset shift from owning the stack to playing a role in a much bigger system, from product features to ecosystem behaviors. Because in a hyper-connected world, your product is rarely the destination. It's part of someone else's journey, one node in a much larger workflow. That shift is what defines digital maturity. So ask yourself, what part does your offering play in your customer's orchestration of value? Where does it fit in the chain of decisions, insights, and experiences? That kind of thinking changes everything, from design choices to pricing models to support strategies. You don't simply sell a sensor, you enable real-time precision. You don't deliver data, you embed trust. You're not simply a supplier, you're a co-architect of outcomes. Let's be clear, digital fatigue is real. We've all felt it. Projects launched with promise, stalled by complexity, dashboards multiplying like rabbits, and KPIs that measure clicks and not outcomes. And teams drowning in tools, each one promising clarity, yet delivering noise. This isn't just theory, it's happening in boardrooms, control rooms, at home offices across the globe. Let's take one Fortune 500 company. They launched over a dozen AI pilot projects in 2 years. According to S&P Global, nearly half were abandoned before deployment. Why? Wrong use cases, overhyped expectations, and a disconnect between technical teams and the frontline reality. Another example, a global manufacturer rolled out 5 collaboration platforms, in 18 months. Burnout went up, engagement went down, decision-making was stalled by endless context switching from system to system. So what did they do? They paused, they consolidated, they adopted an all-in-one digital workspace, unifying emails, meetings, files, and tasks. The result? Fewer context switches, clearer communication, and 22% drop in reported digital fatigue. The lesson? More tech isn't always better. Sometimes the smartest move is subtraction. Simplify the stack, clarify the purpose, and build systems that serve humans, not overwhelm them. To use our early analogy, some digital programs are like a tour operator trying to launch aircraft before the runway is even built. We expect instant returns from journeys built on foundations we haven't even laid. And here's the painful truth. Many digital natives within industrial organizations have migrated from entirely different domains. They bring speed, yes. Design thinking, absolutely. But without grounding in the domain, the machinery, the supply chains, the customer reality, they can't build the solutions that fit. Meanwhile, veteran teams that do understand the domain often find themselves underpowered, outpaced by technology they've never had time to explore. This is the great digital divide. Bridging it requires humility on both sides. Because without alignment, we overinvest in tech that no one uses. We generate insight that solves nobody's problems. And we drown our customers in dashboards, alerts, and silent systems, what he might call data overloaded with no rudder. Let's shift perspective for a moment. Imagine you're the customer, but you don't care that the temperature sensor reports 98.6 degrees. You care that your pump is overheating and someone's on their way with a fix. You don't care how many portals you've been given. You care that you get the answer you need when you need it. Your goal isn't connectivity, it's control, clarity, continuity. The digital leaders understand this. They don't push dashboards, they deliver context. They don't offer portals, they orchestrate outcomes. That's why the user is everything. Build for them, not for your internal reporting. Design to solve, not to showcase. Because if you can't translate data into impact, what's the point? Let's pull the lens back even further, because this isn't just about platforms or workflows, it's about power and trust. As AI becomes more capable, writing code, making decisions, even mimicking empathy, we have to ask, who governs the governance?
We've entered an age where autonomous systems can trade billions, route fleets, or approve credit, where deep fakes, blur reality, and algorithms unintentionally or otherwise shape what we see, believe, and do. It's 40 years ago, the Terminator warned us about Skynet. And whilst the real threat isn't killer robots, it's the quiet erosion of control. The drift towards black box systems we don't understand, can't audit, and don't know how to stop. But governance isn't about slowing innovation. It's about earning the right to scale it. It's not about banning AI. It's about boundaries, clarity, consent, consequence. And this is where maybe AMCA's role becomes pivotal. Because in a world of ambient intelligence and autonomous systems, air movement isn't just mechanical, it's computational. From smart HVAC to adaptive filtrations, your systems are becoming decision makers. The UK's AI regulatory framework is already moving in this direction, with principles around safety, transparency, fairness, accountability, and contestability. And the new AI cybersecurity code of practice lays out how to secure AI systems across their entire lifecycle, from design to decommission. AMCA, as a standards body, potentially has a unique opportunity to help interpret these principles for the built environment, to ensure that connected systems in air movement are not just efficient, but ethical, not just smart, but safe. Because the real legacy of this era won't just be what we built, but what we chose to protect while building it. Let me share a story. AI and digital are amplifieds applied to a well-designed, well-architected solution. They accelerate you into the future. Applied in haste to a poorly considered idea, they trap you in the present. We all know the mantra, think big, start small, act fast, and be prepared to make mistakes. But impatience is the enemy of progress. It's like the frustrated driver stuck in traffic driving down every side street, convinced they're saving time, only to arrive hours later than the driver who simply stayed the course. I once worked with a service company in the building management sector. They were desperate to outperform their competitors, fearful of new digital engines, and determined to leapfrog the market. But their grand vision became an albatross around their neck. They wanted a total solution: energy management, HVAC, lighting, appliances, over 70 categories of assets. Retrofitted sensors, OEM integrations, multiple IoT systems, a single platform to rule them all. But here's the thing. Their core business had always been physical service, installing and maintaining specific appliances. A world where humans adapt in real time, mentally, physically, intuitively. Digital and AI do not work like that. They're powerful, yes, but they're not human. They don't improvise. They don't figure it out on the day. They execute what they were designed, trained, and integrated to do. Nothing more. They require orchestration. They require precision. Because one small design error in a high-speed digital system can spell disaster. One syntax error in 1 million lines of code can derail a multi-million-dollar service. That's why I try not to get emotional thinking back to this. But they pushed ahead anyway, straight from big vision to execution. The boardroom theory was elegant, one solution configurable for every customer. The reality, dozens of applications, different configurations, inconsistent bills of materials, unstructured data, a support model that didn't exist, a junior help desk completely out of its depths, no standards, no governance, no alignment through design to installation to analysis to support. The result? They couldn't manage exceptions, they couldn't aggregate insight, they couldn't even see what was going wrong. The support desk, meant to help customers, was drowning in internal issues. They were thinking like a physical service company, not recognizing that digital single line of code take down the entire system. They commercialized a fragmented solution and created a legacy of technical debt that became a servicing nightmare. Fixing it took months of planning. We had to build a targeted solution and roadmap that delivered the vision iteratively, not all at once. We had to recover existing installations, redesign the operating model, and prepare business scale. Because moving fast is not the same as being agile. You still need direction, a purposeful strategy, clear target markets, a deep understanding of your customer. Why, when, and how they interact with your products and services. That understanding drives your data flows, who needs to see what, when, and why. It becomes your North Star. It guides your technology choices. It forms build versus buy versus partner, service in-house versus outsource. Is the opportunity for you and quickly using. Manufacturers of industrial and commercial equipment have enormous potential to connect and make their products smarter. But with seemingly limitless use cases comes the risk of confusion, distraction, and poor returns. Air movement sits inside a complex ecosystem of suppliers, integrators, and building systems. Yet, the potential is extraordinary. You deliver the most valuable commodity on the planet, the air we breathe. So yes, be bold in your vision, but be disciplined in how you get it. The future lives in your imagination. It always has, and always will. So let's imagine. Imagine building management applications that do more than simply predict the remaining useful life of a bearing on a fan. Imagine adaptive systems that regulate air quality in real time. Imagine environments that sense individual needs, increasing oxygen content someone recovers from a run, or adjusting airflow based on occupancy, health data, or environmental conditions. This is not science fiction, it's simply design that hasn't been built yet. So yes, be bold, embrace large language models, embrace agentic AI, but first, build a culture that embraces the dreams and enables pragmatism. Innovation relies on creativity and adaptability. So build your grand vision, but roadmap and iterate with targeted users. Remember, design your team, not just your product. Design your architecture, not just your service, and build for support, not just for solutions. Because in this new era, the winners won't be the ones who move the fastest, they'll be the ones who move the wisest. And that's why the next step isn't just architecture is advocacy. Making sure the systems we build are understood, adopted, and trusted by the people who rely on them every day. So how do we do better? How do we take everything we've talked about from ambient intelligence to interoperable systems and make it real? It starts with architecture, but it ends with advocacy. Architecture means designing not just products, but systems that evolve, ones that scale, that interoperate, that adapt to new users, new use cases, new priorities. But advocacy, that's the secret ingredient. Because even the best solution can fail without adoption. And adoption isn't an accident, it's earned. By understanding frontline workflow, speaking the customer's language, and embedding value where it's needed, not where it's convenient for us. This is what separates those who digitize from those who transform. Let's look at where the leaders are now. For digitally mature industrial firms, the story has shifted again. It's no longer about whether to digitalize, it's about how deeply. These organizations are blending legacy systems with modern platforms, connecting product lifecycle data to service, finance, manufacturing, building digital twins, not just of products, but of entire operations. They deploy data lakes, but they do it with governance. The training models are tied to operational leaders, and they create single source of the truth, not as a slogan, but as a working fabric of decisions. And the outcome? They don't just move faster, they move smarter. They can simulate before they commit, predict before they respond, serve before the customer even knows they have a need. That's the true promise of hyperconnection. Not just efficiency, but anticipation. At this point, you might be thinking, this is all well and good for companies with vast resources and digital labs. But what about us? We're behind. We're understaffed. We're wrestling with legacy systems that don't even talk to each other. Let me tell you something. You're not behind. We're perfectly placed to leapfrog. Why? Because you don't have to unwind years of siloed experimentation. You don't have to retrofit dozens of disconnected platforms. You're starting from the hard-won lessons of others, the tools that weren't even available 3 years ago. Today, the table stakes have changed. Cloud and IoT platforms are mature. AI services are modular. Low and no code tooling makes integration exponentially more accessible. Partners, developers, even competitors are learning to collaborate in ecosystems, not just compete. What's needed now isn't just scale, but clarity. Digital transformation isn't about launching the most sophisticated tech. It's about building what's useful, beautiful. It's not about dazzling interfaces, it's about visible orchestration. And most importantly, it's not about technology at all. It's about capability. The capability to turn insight into action, to turn data into direction, and to turn intention into impact at every layer of your enterprise. Let me share another story. When I was heading smart product development at a leading industrial engineering firm, we had hundreds of product runners, thousands of barriers, dozens of equipment categories. It was complex. Are you even missing? And we were trying to build a unified intelligence data system that could deliver end-to-end value. We nearly buckled because executive priorities conflicted, digital maturity varied wildly across the organization, and the pressure to deliver was relentless. So we hit pause.
and asked a much simpler question. In a world where everything can be connected, how do you choose what matters? We went back to first principles. We aligned the program to business's growth objectives, and we placed the customer, not the tech, at the heart of everything. We built a roadmap starting with simple market entry offerings and scaling towards fully integrated holistic solutions. We didn't just digitize, we built new operational capability. We accelerated growth from targeted acquisitions. That enables us to connect thousands of sites and devices and lay the foundations for transformational growth. So back to that deeper question. In a world where everything can be connected, everything measured, everything optimized, how do we choose what matters? 3 guiding principles helped us stay on track. Number 1 was focus. Ask who needs to know what, when, and why. Start there, build backwards. One of the most effective solutions we delivered was deceptively simple. It involved a boiler feed tank. No AI, no dashboards, just one job. Keep the water hot enough to avoid efficiency losses, but reheating for steam generation. Reheating cold water wasn't just wasteful, it was expensive. But the teams didn't need a digital twin. They didn't want predictive analytics. They wanted a simple, reliable way to hold temperature in the optimal range. So we created a what-cost plug-and-play temperature hook. It maintained tank temperature at a predefined efficiency threshold and gave a clean signal when corrective action was needed. That was it. And because it was simple, fast, and standalone, it became the gateway. The first win, it more later became a much broader system conversation. That's focus. Not trying to boil the ocean. Other. Just proving value 1 degree at a time. Because sometimes the smartest move is the smallest one. Number 2, flow. Information should move frictionlessly across tools, teams, and timelines. Not just be stored, not just displayed, but used at the moment it matters. At one point, my team developed a smart anomaly detection engine for pump systems, flagging vibration, overheating, incantation in real time. But there was a disconnect. The alerts lived in a monitoring pool, while service teams operated entirely within the ERB. So I laid out a strategy to bridge that gap. Predictive flags would trigger service tickets that routed to the right technician at the correct spares, pre-approved, tied to historical performance and risk profiles. The goal wasn't just insight, it was workflow orchestration, putting intelligence inside the systems that people already use and trust. That's flow. Let your insight find your user and not the other way around. Number 3, feedback. We developed a smart commissioning solution for pump installations. The functionality was solid, but early feedback flagged something decoy. This is clever tech, but it's fiddly. Installation feels like engineering theater. So we stepped back and we iterated fast. We removed the multiplex wiring, switched to plug-and-play sensors, and adopted wireless simplicity. The result? Install time plummeted, support calls evaporated, confidence soared. Not because we added complexity, but because we designed it out. That's feedback, not just as a dashboard metric or a user survey, but as a signal to adapt, simplify, and move fast. You don't always need a Kanban board to be agile. Sometimes it's just about listening hard and fixing quickly. Because systems don't always have to learn.
themselves. Sometimes the smartest money is ours. So focus, flow, feedback. These aren't just principles, they're practices. They're the difference between digital that performs and digital that lends. And when you design with these in mind, you don't just build systems, you build trust. And in so doing, you don't just become more efficient, you become more responsive, more resilient, and ultimately, more human. Now let me leave you with what I believe is the most important takeaway. This isn't really about intelligence, it's about intimacy. Digital transformation succeeds not when you deliver the most features, but when you get closer to the people you serve. When your systems can anticipate their needs, when your services respond to their context, and when your organization becomes not just smarter, but more attuned. Because in the end, this isn't about predictive maintenance or real-time alerts. It's about the building manager who goes home on time because the system caught the problem early. The field engineer whose workload is proactively balanced to avoid burnout. The procurement team who can stop firefighting and start optimizing. The customer who experiences trust because your products feel designed for them, not just sold to them. That's the human dividend of hyperconnection. And in the world of accelerating complexity, that connection, real, felt, purposeful, is what people will remember. So what now? What do we do tomorrow, next week, next quarter? Here's my invitation to you. Don't ask, how do we become a tech company? Ask, how do we become a more confident version of ourselves with technology as our ally? Don't ask, how do we win the race to connect? Ask, how do we design for value and let connection follow purpose? But don't ask what's possible. Ask what's meaningful, what's worth building, what's worth protecting, what's worth leaving behind. Because digital transformation is not a roadmap, it's not a dashboard, and it's certainly not a sprint. It's a mindset. It's a belief that when we connect things intelligently and design systems thoughtfully, we can build organizations that are not just more efficient, but more equitable, more adaptable, more aspiration. So I'll leave you with a simple, urgent question. What kind of future do you want to create? What kind of legacy will we leave, not just for our shareholders, but for our customers, our teams, and our communities? The opportunity is real. The challenges are great. The momentum is here, and the time is now. Thank you. So now's the pressure time for you guys in the audience, where I turn it around and say, has anybody got any questions? I guess I might have a question for you then, if there's no more questions, because the conversation the presentation is really about the speed of innovation, the acceleration of innovation. It's not about AI or any other technology, it's about the fact that the world is changing incredibly rapidly. And it's how do you continue to perform and compete and differentiate yourself in that world. So I'm really interested to know what you guys in the Akka community are doing at the moment with respect to your technology choices and where you're seeing applications for AI or digital or any other technology. What's happening in the Akka world right now? People using digital as a differentiator, a question at the back.
It sounds like what's your question, but this is something that we've been thinking a lot about. I took over a very old company with a lot of signs that are in dusty file boxes. So I have them packed up, ready to be scanned. And I've been told the best way to do AI with that to grab the designs and the information we need is a closed circuit AI. Is that something you would recommend so that by designs don't get floated out to the universe?
That's a great question. Honestly, it's not one that I have the answer to. What I would say is that things like generative AI can do an awful lot with old documents and interpreting them and effectively capturing them for you. I think there's probably, multiple different systems that can solve that problem for you. But no, one thing I wouldn't profess to be is my specialism is around innovation as opposed to any particular AI technology. But there's so much choice out there these days across so many different applications, and especially, sure you see with AI assistants like Gemini and Copilot, the capability is almost enormous.
Right. What are some good strategies to avoid unwanted bloat for the customer? For example, last time I went to buy a TV, I spent extra money to make sure I did not get a smart TV, since it causes more problems than it solved for me. How do we avoid doing something similar with our products?
That's a great question. That's a great question, because it's something that you see all the time. Pretty much every technology program that I've worked with, whether it's working in-house for an OEM or working as a consultant, as the problems that come from when you start from the technology. So AI is moving really fast, IoT is introduced, and there's wave after wave, agentic AI and all sorts of things coming through continuously. And I think there's a risk of companies feeling overwhelmed, feeling the need to respond to what's happening in the world around them. And the problem is that they often start with technology rather than with the user. So back to your point, it's really around making sure that you understand what your strategy is from the outset. Who is your target user? How do they use that technology? How do they apply it? Back to that whole point around the 3 points with focus, flow, and feedback. Ultimately, you need to know who your target audience is. You need to prioritize the right customers that are going to align with your business objectives. And once you do that, you need to understand their customer journey. How do they use it? How do they apply it? And I'm exactly the same, by the way. I have a smart TV that I cannot stand. It takes about 10 minutes to reboot every time, gives me a software update, and all I want to do is just watch the news. So yeah, yeah.
I have a question. When you're thinking about the future, how far do you think is a good distance to consider? Because right now it seems like even 5 years from now is really hard to understand.
Well, that's another really great question. Difficult one to answer. The one thing I would say is the one constant you have is your strategy. Ultimately, you have business growth objectives, you have target markets, and you have a way in which you are best placed to go about and compete and win business in the marketplace. And that sort of sets your playing field. These are the customers that we should be going after. This is where we can offer real value. This is how we can improve profitability for a business. So if you start there, then you work back from, well, actually, what's stopping us from doing that? So it's not really about the technology and which technologies you should necessarily considering to solve the problems. Start with the problem first, think about your target markets, and then effectively build out a strategy, and then bring the technology back into play. And then you can start to do discovery around, well, which are the emerging technologies that are really in it for? A couple of the use cases or examples that I gave there were very much around really simple technologies. When I first started in this space, I came from a background of doing corporate strategy. I moved into heading the product management, and then I moved into service, and it was a natural evolution into digital. The reason I was brought into digital is because the company had brought in a technology team that knew the technology really, really well.
but they just focused on the technology. You know, they over-engineered the hell out of it. It was the classic example of the smart TV with all the functionality that you didn't want. It cost an absolute fortune. And actually, if we'd started from a blank sheet of paper, we would have gained 2 years. So you really need to be careful about when you think about technology. It's not about the technology itself, it's the problem you're trying to solve. You know, I go into companies and do audits around digital maturity, and there's 7 or 8 steps. Technology is number 6. You know, get your strategy right, just have your target markets, your products, get your operating model right, turn of the design of the team, so you've got an innovation engine that can actually develop and design those technologies. Make sure you've got support model to enable those technologies, and then get to the technologies. So I wouldn't get too hung up on the technology. Get up and look at the problems you're trying to solve, and then let the technology follow that. Because it's very, very easy to get caught up in things. We've got to do agentic AI, we've got to do large language models. No, you don't. You only need to use them if they solve a problem for you and the customer.
Thank you. So we are at time. I do need a few minutes of everyone's attention also. So does anybody have like a last question for that? All right. Well, thank you so much, Alasdair. That was just